Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another community forum, MTV Community Forum, this Wednesday the 2nd. Wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, at home, Channel 18, welcome and good evening to you all. Chris, of course, our co-host Chris Diali. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron. Good to be here in hot temperature and climate outside, 33 degrees plus.
33? How much Fahrenheit is that?
No, that is probably 90 something Fahrenheit.
Whoa, shit, this is...
And, we're under a heat alert. So, viewers, it's a pleasure to be back on another episode of Community Forum. Good evening, and I hope you enjoy this evening's program with us.
Chris, I have news for you. Let me tell you, I've been making the rounds in some of the village shops, and you know what I learned? I learned that alcohol consumption is somewhat down. In other words, Clark's Court sales is down. That's what I understand. And guess what's up? Ivanov. Ivanov is a Guyanese-produced vodka. It sells for $10, 200 milliliters. That's like an 8. So it's available, it's cheap, highly intoxicating. I think it's 40%. Even, how you call it? It's called Campeche. You know, that's the one Clark's Court mixed with the Boabandi. Even that sale is down. Ivanov is what's...
So the consumption of alcohol is not down.
It's kind of level.
It's a type that people are consuming because of cost.
Cost, it seems.
Right, so
says something about the economy there.
Well, yes, I suppose if they're drinking in the rum shop. You know, in days gone by, Caribbean used to have a similar issue with beer. Because you will pay $5 for a beer there generally. And if you drink 4 beer, that's $20.
Yeah.
Whereas you could buy 2 8 strong rum.
But you see, Campeche is not. Campeche is being. That's the one with the Boabandi. You know, Campeche is used to. You know, it's a very popular drink with men.
Yeah.
You ever tried it, Chris?
No. I don't drink alcohol. But you see, women know.
Yeah.
Are large consumers of alcohol.
Yeah.
But not hard rum. It's vodkas.
No, and they don't consume so much alcohol in the village shop. They are more sophisticated, I believe.
So I suspect that is also an influence as well. An influencer.
Chris, this week a lot of politics, and I want to go to it early. The NNP, they have been making the news. They've been on the news. Political leader of the opposition he's been making a lot of statements. I mean, like, wow, just wow, you know.
What does a wow mean?
Well, the wow means like unexpected. You know,
that he won't be stepping down as vying for leadership?
I'm not sure. I mean, if he's saying, look, if he's saying, look, I'm in my 70s and my mother is 102 plus, he's sending a signal. And if he's saying, look, if you foolish enough to challenge me, you know, what is he saying? That I'm there. But Chris, I don't know. What do you think, man? You know what's been said and what's been going on.
The various meetings they've been having and tuning into some of them.
Yeah.
And I believe, without a doubt, that there's an infighting in the party about leadership.
Yeah.
When you listen to Dr. Mitchell and talking about from cradle, you have to come up, understand what's happening in the party, be born into this thing and so on. Clearly, there seems to be some concern of whether Peter David, who has put his hand openly to say he's vying for leadership.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mitchell seems to, it appears, from all his utterings, that there is some concern whether Peter David could actually take the leadership.
Yeah.
And that is something he probably doesn't
He
want
never
to
called him out by name. You think he's referring to him?
Yes, because when you look at what he says about you had to be born into this NNP thing, you had to understand the culture, you had to grow in the party.
And I wouldn't take it as Morris.
Yeah, and right. And all of those kind of things. You know, Peter David doesn't have that qualification.
Yeah.
Peter David has come into the party through coming over from the NEC and so on and so forth.
That's correct.
So you know that those comments are indirectly channeled towards him. So the issue is, and interestingly enough, Mr. David has not responded at all.
No.
He's taken it, you know, let Keith Mitchell and the leader of the party, who he is now, say what he has to say, and then when you see the appointment of the 2 senators, Dwight Osford and Dr.
Joseph, is it?
Yeah, I can't remember her name. It's a clear indication that Dr. Mitchell is talking about young people coming into the party and bringing them through the leadership and so on. But the rumors are that Dwight Osford is going to be put forward as one of the people vying for leadership with Emmeline Payne as his deputy.
Yeah.
which is two people he supports. So all of that, and when you look at how and what is being said, you could see that there's a clear separation or thing between Peter David's faction of the party, if he has that, and Dr. Mitchell's faction. So what I didn't hear, Byron, and probably could tell me, I don't know if a date was announced for the convention, because when we had Senator Cox on, he said General Council has to happen first, and from General Council you'll get a date.
And Chris, I could tell you how I don't know.
No,
Chris.
no, I mean,
well,
probably
Chris,
you would listen to the General Council.
No, nothing was announced there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, I find listening to the leader of the opposition is all about himself, what he wants to go into retirement. He wants, but what about this rescue mission about anyway? We are forgetting, I think for a moment, why the NNP lost the election. They didn't pay the pension, and I heard some rhetoric about they're not responsible for not paying the pension. But the big issue for losing the election was a question of trust.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed in my view. But what about this rescue mission about?
Well, I mean, my understanding, this rescue mission is talking to how this current economy is going.
Yeah.
And they believe there's a lot of things wrong with it.
Yeah.
And here comes NNP again in the background to rescue the country.
But NNP needs to first, I'm not going to say rescue itself, but it needs to put this house in order first. It needs to call a convention, and go forward with things. Rather than making these statements and where's it leading?
I think Dr. Mitchell is riding up the base to support him in the convention.
To support him?
Well, support his side.
Oh, his
whoever
side.
Comes forward.
Okay.
And,
but you believe he will step down?
Well, he hasn't said so.
Okay.
He has said he continues to be the leader of the party, and nobody will oust him by force or otherwise.
Right. Okay.
So you don't know what that means if he's going to vie for it.
Yeah.
But it would appear that he's positioning people to take over the leadership. So that might be one of the issues happening there. But at the end of the day, I think the other issue NNP has is, as I said, I think there's only 5 candidates they have that have agreed to go back into the politics. So he needs to get either 9 or 10 new faces to come forward. Yeah. And the voting populace outside of his base needs to get to know these people. Because I remember the margin between NDC and NNP is small in terms of votes. Yeah. The base will probably stay constant. Yeah. So it's the people on the fence you have to convince. Yeah. But
you also have the demographics have changed. You also have a new population. The majority of the population now, is between 16 and 45, I believe. That's who's going to decide the future of Grenada and any election going forward. So I believe that we need to involve more of this population, these young people, into the parties, into the running, into the decision making. I think this is so important. We need to know when it's time, Chris.
Yeah, well. When you see who we have appointed as senators, it's 2 young people. Who was there before was 2 young people that resigned. So I think he's playing the youth game with the younger age. But when you look at NDC compared to NNP in terms of leadership and youth versus a mature leader as Dr. Mitchell, you wonder what the younger population will look at. I don't know if age is going to be one or if it's the quality of the representation versus Deacon versus Dr. Mitchell. So when the surveys come out and so on, we're going to understand that better as we get closer. Yeah. But NNP, in my view, have a lot of work to do to convince.
I need to rebrand. It's
basically a lot of work.
Chris, a lot's been happening at the United Nations. In fact, our own Prime Minister has been there. I've been listening to some of the presentations at the United Nations. I think this is the 69th sitting. But of note was Mia Motley. She led the walkout when Netanyahu started speaking. And
it was a big walkout.
It was a big walkout, But Mia herself was, she was powerful in her remarks. I believe, Chris, I think she's going to be a candidate for the next Secretary General of the United Nations.
Oh yeah, I without a doubt.
I think she's
has
there. I think she's
a lot of support of the United Nations members, and when you hear the kind of applause she got compared to others like Ralph Gonzalez, our own Prime Minister.
She's in another level.
And
she's in
the
another
Foreign Minister
level.
from St. Lucia.
She's in another level.
You get the feeling that she has a certain level of popularity and respect among the various members that none of the others have.
Because I heard some of the speakers, and like Trinidad, their foreign minister was there, Jamaica, and our prime minister also. And I just want to make a short comment on our prime minister's presentation, which I listened to. I think he started well, and I was proud of that. That he started with Cuba and the embargo and the legality of it. You know what it's doing to the people of Cuba, the suffering that is causing and generating. And then he went on to talk about the Haitian situation. And of course, he's on the stage as a chairman of CARICOM. And I thought that was how he put forward the Haitian situation and what was happening there with the killings taking place, the banditry there, the gangs. And so I thought that was a good beginning. But then he went on to talk about resilience in his main speech. But what I found, Chris, was that for a full 6 minutes of his presentation, he talked about himself. The year he was born, where he was growing up in St. David's, where he went to school, where he brought up by his grandparents, his parents migrated, he studied law, how he started the politics. I thought it was inappropriate to be at the United Nations and for 6 minutes on the biggest stage in the world to talk about yourself. Who cares? Who wants to know that? What's the relevance?
Yeah, I listened
you
to
saw
that too. Yes, and I had some I wasn't clear that was relevant at that stage.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to the other speakers from the CARICOM region, it was all about climate change.
Yeah.
It was all about the Cuba situation.
Yeah.
They spoke about, what is happening in the world with the wars and so on, and the possible impacts. And all of them had a similar theme.
Yes.
Ralph and our Prime Minister, Ralph spoke a lot about, burial and the impacts of climate change, and our Prime Minister, I didn't hear him mention much about that, but I thought 6 minutes was pretty long for him to speak about himself and where he came from. And nothing wrong about that. Probably our audience in Grenada would have been more appreciative of that than an audience international as it was. So, I mean, we have different ways of doing things, but I thought he missed an opportunity to be more forward and press the issue of climate change and its impact for cities.
As the leader of CARICOM in that particular session.
Yeah.
Chris, we have a lot to cover tonight. Let's try to move quickly on this. There's a dock worker strike in effect on the eastern United States, all the way from Maine to
Miami.
Past Miami, Texas. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dallas. Huge. One union alone has 45,000 workers plus, yeah? Major disruption for the world, how you call it, supply chain.
Yeah.
And commodities and goods and everything. But given this is happening, are we immune from it? How can this affect us in Grenada?
Well, it could affect us significantly two ways. Shortages, that means goods not arriving on time, especially if you have goods coming out of China and Europe into Miami and the US down to us in the CARICOM region. So you will have disruptions in the timeliness of your goods coming. And then there's the most significant part, the increase in costs.
How about barrels coming here?
Well, barrels coming in from New York primarily or Canada will be affected as well. Because
Entire
it's a whole eastern chain. So that in itself can cause some significant changes to what is going to happen with us getting goods on time and how it can impact our Christmas. Those of us in manufacturing like myself have significant concern because you cannot, Byron, have what we call inventory, buffer stock that will hold you for 3, 4, 6 months based on what the issue is and how long the strike goes. So we can't afford it. So what will happen, we'll have some buffer stock for 2 weeks in case of a shortage or something, and that we could hold our goods on the shelf. And in this time, there is normally increased spending. People want to buy gifts, they want to buy stuff for food and do cakes. So it can seriously impact, and then it can have an impact on inflation and the price of goods on the shelf.
So we shouldn't believe that this is happening somewhere else and it's not going to affect us, not
at all.
But the other major conflict taking place, of course, the war, the Middle East war now, this is extended. Iran is now, so this is a major conflict situation that can go anywhere. This could interrupt oil trade and other trade, so this could also have a possible impact on us.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is Lebanon and Iran have now been pulled into the war.
Yes.
So it is extended.
Yes, that's correct.
And then you have the U.S. building up with their ships and their armory in
Of course.
the Gulf or whatever.
They're part of the war. They're supplying all the armaments, and they are in defensive position with Israel.
You hear President Biden talking about he doesn't want to see this thing extend. But
He's biting his tongue. That's a joke.
Yeah, but then
Israel is like a proxy.
Yeah, then you have Israel doing what they want, coming across the border in Lebanon on the northern side. And I mean, it's like Lebanon have no sovereignty.
No.
You know, you can just go in a country and do what you want. It's just similar to what Russia is doing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And here it is, we have the U.S. supporting this kind of move by Israel, but they want to kill Russia with sanctions and everything for the Ukraine issue, and supporting Ukraine with billions of dollars in armament. And I think it's a big business thing, quite frankly, this war for the U.S. They make a lot of money.
A lot of money.
They produce a lot of these armaments.
Yeah.
But the issue is, you know, how does the killing of so much young people and population, they're just decimating infrastructure, hospitals, schools, everything is
everything.
Because Israel is not just bombing; they're taking their tractors and they're coming and tearing up roads and you know, mashing up water mains. So it's like a total destruction. So the issue has to be, you know, with this extension of the war, you know, where it is going. Remember, Iran could be a possible nuclear power. They have the capability to do it. Israel is one already.
We know that,
right? So you have to worry that one of these fellas wouldn't just decide, you know, let me test one. And then that would put the war in a real spin.
But, you know, Israel is allowed to, as a bandit, to do. Israel doesn't operate under any laws, I mean, it kills, it does. But we move on. There was a cyber attack on MoneyGram, Chris. We use Grenada. We use MoneyGram. I'm to understand that that's the main transfer, particularly with our diaspora. You know, a lot of our funds come in families via MoneyGram.
That's correct.
And cyber attack is not good.
Well, yeah, there seemed to have been a cyber attack. I think MoneyGram had put out a release saying that they're doing a lot of work to understand the impact. It looked as though they were going after the data issues to get the data. And it just shows, Byron, that, you know, when we had the cyber attack on the banks and the credit unions, there's a lot of talk about, you know, these institutions not doing what they have to do. Here is MoneyGram now. So it would appear, based on the government cyber unit, that we are in the Caribbean here, in the OECS in particular, soft targets. And these hackers are coming after us. So going after MoneyGram which is lower in the chain in terms of money movement through the financial institutions like the credit union and so on, is a clear example to me that these guys are touching everything they could that have financial impact and could you know, use the data for wrong things and sell it on the black web to do what
Chris,
they want.
just some observation on the West Coast. I see the Molyneux Landfill Road is coming on quite well. The projection is that from the observation I've seen personally, looks impressive. Really hope it works, and in the near future, here November, here December, that this could be done. The other thing is the Perseverance landfill. There's a major fire there for the past week. Very unhealthy, I would say, discomforting for the villages there, like the Concord, the Woodford, Brizan, all these villages there. You know, it's bad for the population there.
I want to probably take that on the climate issues and raise two things with you in the climate issues that have come up recently, and that is the first one has to do with the sargassum seaweed. I think there's a conference going on now.
Yes, that's correct.
As to how we could use sargassum productively, and Barbados came up with a biofuel out of sargassum, which they tested positive. So again, that's good things coming out from the climate side with sargassum, because sargassum is definitely as a result of climate change and shifting in tides and what is happening and so on. So seeing
abundant in nutrients in the water.
Seeing how we could get that under some control is something that you know, we need to look at positively. But the other thing I want to bring up nationally is the Green Group. Is a group that, you know, looks at how we treat our environment, from garbage to EIAs and recycling. And I saw a release from them, which was sad, that they have put out these bins for plastic to take plastic out of the landfills and to take plastic out of the oceans and so on. And you have bins for plastic, bins for other waste and so on. And Grenadians would just dump everything in the one with plastic. And one of the guys in Green Group, I think it's Ian, is the president, have said, you know, when they have to go and clean it and take out the stuff, there's the worms and the this and this is a voluntary group.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, our people. We have to, and they color-coded some of them.
Yes.
And you still would not put your plastics in one, you put all kind of mess in it. I mean, I just think our people are just, we talk a talk,
yeah,
but we don't walk the walk.
Chris,
you were swimming the other day and meet a lot of plastic in the water?
Of course, yes, of course.
And you weren't happy about it?
Kind of scary, yeah. Chris, and the other thing I noticed on the West Coast, in the Bushesview area, there's a major farm development taking place there. A young farmer is in fact bringing on, I think, large acreage, and I'm really impressed with that. And we want to see more of this duplicated around the island, So kudos to this farmer, and I hope his family gets all the support from the authorities to go forward. Chris, anything else? We run out of time.
I want to quickly say two things. First of all, I want to extend condolences to the family of our Governor General, Danny Williams, who I understood passed earlier on this week. And we also had the passing of Mr. Alan Maguire, who was a big part of NAWASA at one time. He was a manager there and manager in various areas in Grenada in banking and so on. So I want to extend condolences to the families of those two gentlemen that would have passed recently. And finally, I want to give congratulations to the last cohort of graduates in the police force. 40 that was graduated recently, and congratulate all of them and the Royal Grenada Police Force for again putting out a next cohort of officers that is badly needed sometime in human resource and all. But I want to add that I am begging the High Command to at least put 2 or 3 officers to patrol the Granans route on a consistent basis between peak hours, and you could reduce it and rotate it, because you cannot afford a stoppage and a breakdown on Granans Road. We have some big truck now that are breaking down all over the place with all the loads and so on. And when that happened, the traffic backing up for miles. I mean, when you come along Toby Road, we used to have a marshal there. They didn't have no police officer or marshal, and the traffic backing up all past Fort Judy entrance because of the volume of traffic coming down from St. David's.
Something you experience?
Yes.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
And merging from Munjaloo, merging from Woburn, and everybody coming up.
What's the delays like? 20 minutes, 10 minutes?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. That's a long time. Chris, say something about our special guests coming on.
Yes, we have this evening with us Miss Laurel Bain. Miss Laurel Bain is the current chairman of FROC and an avid writer as it relates to economic issues in our country and the impacts. And she'll be on shortly with us.
So viewers, we take a short break. We'll be right back.
Blast Gaming presents its biggest job whatever. Blast Mystery Progressive. I'm so excited. I can't hide it. In your blast jackpot rising. And I like it. It going up and up and up and up and up. Blast up and up and up and up and up and up.
Play selected games to win in the Blast Mystery Progressive. Pick until you match 3 gems and win one of the 5 cash jackpots. Or you can blast up with the Mystery Progressive jackpot.
It going up and up and up and up and up. Blast up and up and up. Blast Gaming.
Hey, Grenada, come get your money. We know it's been a while, and now we're back. Because on Sunday, October 6th, Megaforce Promotion says all roads leads to Monroe's playing field for the most exciting bingo game ever. Bucks and money. We're talking 20 bingo games and $100,000 in a box. You decide your winnings. This is gonna be pure fun and excitement. So get your tickets now. $60 for 1 or $100 for 2.
Grenada.
Get ready for $100,000 in cash as Megaforce Promotion presents Bucks of Money. Sunday, October 6th at Monroe's playing field. You just gotta be there.
Have you recovered from Carnival yet? Well, you should be by now, as MTV is ready to deck the halls with festive Christmas treasures. Yes, you heard it. Your wish can come through in December with MTV, Fusion FM, and Grenada Informer. Stay tuned and await the magic of Christmas.
GRENDEC Community Partnership Initiative.
We are immensely pleased and honored for GRENDEC's generosity towards the school. This project is the refurbishment of the Home Economic Center. When GRENDEC decided to partner with us, we were truly appreciative. this center would afford us the opportunity for our students to be engaged in practical life skills.
Grenbeck, energizing our community.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome back to Community Forum. As indicated earlier, we have Ms. Laurel, and let me get it totally right, Laurel Theresa Bain, who is going to be joining us to talk about a number of issues, the census that was done for 2021, population by age and sex, as well as on economic issues and so on. So let me just quickly tell you, Ms. Bain is a former employee of the ECCB, where she served in various positions, including that of Deputy Director in the Research Department and Senior Director of Statistics Department, and have been an advisor in the Governor's Office for many years. Ms. Bain has over 25 years of central banking experience. She has undertaken considerable research on economic and fiscal policy, which is something she writes about in the papers on occasion. And she has undertaken assessments of the ECCU, Currency Union, which is OECS in particular, and research on fiscal policies and taxation. Following her retirement from the ECCB, Ms. Bain has been involved in Caribbean Development Bank sponsored project which provided training to senior public officers. And Ms. Bain is currently the chairman of the FROC, the Financial Responsibility Oversight Committee. I hope I got that right. And Ms. Bain holds a Bachelor of Science and Masters of Science degrees in economic and from the universities of the West Indies. So, ladies and gentlemen, we happily invite Ms. Bain to start off our second part of the program, and we're going to start off with her on the recent statistics that came out on our population census, and ask her some questions. Ms. Bain, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, and good evening to all.
Good evening.
Thank you, Laurel. It's a pleasure to have you, my friend for many years. Laurel has been my friend, so
Yeah.
be gentle with Laurel, I'll just let you know. So, Laurel, I want to start with the census and the results that came out. And when I read your article that you had put out in the papers, generally, my general comments is that the population has not grown by much. I think it's by 2%. It was at 106, it is 109 now, I think what the census has revealed. The mix in terms of male and female is about even, 50%, 50%, but the interesting thing is the aging population, and we have a pretty young population. So my first question to you is, how do you see that impacting our social services like NIS and health? Because those are two areas that we are challenging.
Yes, and thank you again. And as you say, there is a aging population, but the aging population is just a slight in terms of the aging population, because the data shows us that in the 2011 census, the youthful population, and I put that under the age of 45, was 68%. But now in the 2021 census, it is 64%. So there is a slight aging in the population. In the slight aging of the population, generally, you will have greater demands on your social services and your social security system. However, in recent times, my understanding is that there have been some adjustments in terms of the timing of benefits from the social security system, and hence the impact, because some actions have been taken. And because the change is, for the moment, is gradual, and the population has remained fundamentally unchanged in terms of numbers, the impact may not be significant in the immediate.
But here we have, Laurel, that NIS has moved the retirement age to 65 before you could get funds from it. It means people are going to stay in the workforce longer. That has an impact on, of course, the young people who have to come into the workforce and contribute to our social security services. So what, in your view, is the impact? Because, and then that will also affect the unemployment numbers in young people, which is, I think, 46% based on our last figures that was put out. So how do you see us reconciling those issues?
Yes. And you're right that not supporting you on the number, but that you have a higher unemployment rate among the youths, particularly the age between 15 and 19, relatively high. Now, the issue here is not, and as you said, the elder folks are remaining longer in the workforce. But the issue with the unemployed at the moment seems not to be one of the lack of jobs. The issue seems to be the match between the skills of the unemployed youth and the demands of the workforce. And I will say that because, number one, while we have the high unemployment among the youth, we are importing basic skills in terms of labor. So that is so the problem is not that there is not enough work for the unemployed, but the problem is the skills, what the economy is demanding and what the skills of the unemployed.
With your experience in our region and being a research officer on fiscal matters and matters of economy, when we look at single market and economy and the movement of people, I am always one that believes that when you try to look at the attitude to work in Grenada, whether it be in construction, whether it be in the hotel sector, and so, or locals or agriculture, which suffers badly from labor shortages, the issue is our workforce have a problem, in my view, of their ethics when it comes to working and being productive. Compare that to if you were to bring in 5,000 Venezuelans or wherever Haitians, and we move within CSME and the efficiencies we would get in construction and other areas. Is this something that governments need to seriously ponder with the single market movement, and where we need to bring up the efficiency of work in the various sectors like construction and the hotel sector?
The attitude and the efficiency is one factor that has two factors that have to be taken into consideration at all times. And I don't think it is something that is to Grenada only, but I think that work attitude as a general has to improve. However, along with the attitude, I still maintain that there is a gap. When we look at the census again, we know the census shows us that the level or the highest level of education attained has increased over the years significantly between 2011 census and 2021 census. However, when we look at the level of education, most of the education in terms of highest level attained is at the secondary school level. So it means, therefore, that there is still this skill gap in the economy because you are not moving in mass beyond the secondary school level. Tertiary education, post-secondary school education lags significantly behind the secondary school education. So along with the attitude and maybe the incentives needed to go there, I think there is a fundamental problem that needs to be addressed.
I want to add this other problem on your radar, and that is, I have always articulated and believe, when you look at our population growth over the last 40 years, and we could go back as far as that or a little less, our population have not moved beyond 100,000 significantly. So it means to me, in my mind, and when you compare the amount of graduates coming out of secondary school in that time, and even though tertiary through TAMCC and IFE has been thousands, and those are not in the economy, they have traveled, they have gone. Our nurses is a good example. We qualify nurses and we can't keep them, they go. So the issue for me here is, how does our economy grow if we don't have people to consume and the services that is being offered and move the economy and the GDP to a point where it could be beyond 3 and 4%? If we don't have people to consume goods and services. So I say that our most consistent export in terms of what we have done in the last 30 years is our people. It doesn't, and the census shows that quite openly with the population. Our population has not reached 120,000, 130,000, where I think makes it economically viable for certain businesses to open and grow in Grenada. What are your thoughts?
Yes. No, look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity. So because you have a population, it has not grown significantly, but you have exported talents. Right? So that means you have talents over there, experienced talent. And therefore, what should be the focus is, how do we utilize the talents that we have developed to build Grenada? Because, it is a free society and people will look for opportunities out there. Now, in a small country, in small economies, opportunities, will be limited in some cases. Let's take a doctor, let us say a specialist, a brain specialist. In 1 year, how much patient he may have. So he's out there, but he could be of service to Grenada. In this day of technology.
And telemedicine to be precise.
Yeah.
Right. So in technology, so you could export things, that is, other persons could consume what you're producing without living in the country. And you can utilize expertise from out there with their being in that country. And then so we should look at the other end of it and see to what extent can we benefit positively from that development which may be beyond our control. That does not say that a growth should not be targeted. Growth should be targeted and sustained to ensure that you have employment, but we have to look at the export of people in a different perspective.
Yeah, I will have Byron to comment, but I believe my last comment, Laurel, is that if you want nurses and I could graduate 200, I'm charging you for 150, I'm keeping 50, and make it a proper way to export our nurses. So I think that is something we need to look at in a different lens. But that is my last comment, Byron.
Ms. Bain, great. I think we should continue this conversation. But I want to shift a bit as chairperson for the Fiscal Resilience Oversight Committee. Could you tell us what role does the committee play in ensuring transparency and accountability of government spending?
Well, the Fiscal Resilience Oversight Committee is guided by the Fiscal Resilience Act. And the Fiscal Resilience Act is linked to the Public Finance Management Act and the Debt Management Act. And this specifies what the Fiscal Resilience Oversight Committee will do. And in doing so, the Fiscal Resilience Oversight Committee monitors not only for the fiscal targets, but ensuring fiscal transparency. So if we look at our annual report, what we do, we look at all the documents the government is legislatively required to produce, and we indicate whether, in terms of fiscal transparency, the government is doing as it's supposed or is legislated to do. We do so in the annual report that we produce. We also produce a compliance statement quarterly, and we indicate whether the government is transparent or not. And we also monitor and will also write to the government in cases where we are seeing that there might be need to improve transparency.
You've made a number of recommendations to the government, one being, for example, to add 2 economists to the FROC committee, and other recommendations you've made. Has government implemented those recommendations coming from FROC? You can tell us about, ma'am?
Yes, I will say not at the moment. What we have done, though, in FROC is that we try to ensure that FROC itself is transparent and there is a defined relationship with the government so that we could interrelate and put forward our recommendation in a, I would say, organized manner. So what we have done in recent times, we have prepared a memorandum of understanding that will guide the relationship between the FROC and the Ministry of Finance, particularly when we make recommendations. 2, we have strengthened our charter or guidelines so that the FROC operates with transparency, accountability, and therefore with these 2 instruments coming in place during this cycle, we hopefully by October we should have them in place. We will have this defined relationship which will help us to put forward, discuss our recommendations sometimes in a transparent manner.
I want to be a little specific here about one actions of the government, for example, and you can answer that in your capacity as chairwoman of FROC or independently as an economist, as a consultant, your view on this. The government, and it has to do with transparency and accountability. For projects of the past, projects of 15,000 and under was omitted from the traditional procurement procedures going through the procurement board and so forth and so forth. The government has extended this 15,000 to $100,000. This is by several 100%, which means that spending upwards of upwards of $100,000, the government no longer needs to go through procurement process. What is your feelings on this? What is your position on this? What do you have to say about this matter?
Yes, and I'm saying not as chair of FROC.
Precisely, yes.
In a personal capacity.
Yes.
So a procurement at about 15,000, in my view, is relatively low.
Yes.
Because you want to speed up implementation, right? And I'm sure within the Ministry of Government, there must be mechanism to control expenditure, not only through the procurement process. There should be other methods of procuring expenditure. Mm-hmm. So in my view, the 15,000 could be relatively low. To what extent you pitch it, I will not comment on to what extent you pitch it, because it means that, I'll have to get a sense, what level the value of these projects you have the government is confronted with in terms of the procurement. But all I should say is that along with the increase in the procurement base, there must be, I don't think it should be just a flat deletion, but there must be systems for expenditure management.
So it
must be combined with system for expenditure management.
I like that term, and I'm going to remember it. Systems for expenditure management, and that describes it.
Because it doesn't matter what level of procurement, what process you go in, but if the system is not working, you still have a problem.
Yeah, the other, of course, you have written, and one of the things you've written on, you've stated that unemployment and poverty are commonly used to monitor the welfare of the population, and we were discussing the unemployment situation, the fact that it's been going down, and this is positive for the country, and how it affects both male and female. But you have not talked about the poverty issue. And therefore, how are we using poverty to measure the welfare of the population, to use your term? Because here we have a situation that only very recently came out here on our question of food and nutrition security, and this work was done by the government, its consultants, and found that 42.3% of our population are unable to eat healthy and nutritious food, and some 40% ate less than they should. Some households, 19% had no food on some days. So this is just an indication of the poverty. But What is your sense of our poverty level in Grenada, and what are the actions that really should be taken on them if we're going to do a proper assessment of the welfare of our population?
And that's a good question, because poverty is an indication of welfare, and economic and social policies are to improve welfare. Now, the countries undertake poverty assessment. And the poverty assessment is undertaken every 10 years. I've written on the poverty assessment, and I've indicated that a gap of 10 years is too much a lag in terms of assessing the trends in poverty. Good? So they have poverty assessment. The latest poverty assessment was at the end of 2018, 2019. And it gave us a poverty rate that was before the COVID pandemic. It gave us a poverty rate of 25%. And that poverty rate is poverty based on consumption, what the persons consume, or income, their income. However, it also showed what they call multidimensional poverty. That is when you're taking things like amenities, security, things like that. The poverty, multidimensional poverty, was 34%. It also showed that, that is also evident in the census, that there is a group of low income, or poverty, a low group there. And I think the reports indicated that, there have been some increase in inequality as you have this group of low-income households. Even the census shows that you also have a group of low-income households. So to address poverty, number one, the poverty report said that a large percentage of the poor are unemployed. So you have to address unemployment in order to address poverty, right? Now, on the census, it shows that you have persons with income below $800 per month, below $400 a month. So you have to address income, what we call the working poor. So you have to address income through the working poor. It is hopeful that the increase in the minimum wage, the examination of the minimum wage periodically every 3 years will assist in addressing the working poor, those who are working and are poor. Economic growth, developing the skills of the youth who are unemployed so that they could find work. This too should help in terms of the unemployment, because the age group between after 24, generally they are employed. And I want to mention that group has to be addressed also, because they are not only unemployed, but some have dropped out of the labor force. And here maybe we could look at the program and we could bring up the policy of, and maybe that could assist, increasing the school age to 18. Would it keep persons in an education facility so that they could develop their skills rather than looking for jobs that they cannot find? And combined with promoting and developing the skills in school, directing students to skills that are needed in the economy. And these should contribute to alleviating some of the poverty along with economic growth.
Thank you. What are the things you've written about, and I want you to explain for us the implications of it. You've written about a growing current account surplus, both from 2022 and in 2023. Of course, you're referencing the first 6 months there. In addition to that growing current account surplus, you mentioned again for the 23 period, the first period, that only 35% thereabout of budgeted capital expenditure of 318 million were utilized. So you expressed some concern about this, but tell us, what are the implications for underspending your capital expenditure and a growing current account surplus? What does this tell us? What's your assessment of it, and what are the recommended action?
Okay. So the current accounts, the capital expenditure is not included in the current account surplus.
Yeah,
So the current account surplus is your operational expenditure.
that's right.
So your operational expenditure is in surplus. And generally, it is good to have surplus on your operational account. It gives an indication of your savings, and money could be used for your capital expenditure. Good? Your capital expenditure, I think it was the first quarter of the year.
Yes.
And generally, you have, there tend to be a rapid increase in capital spending towards the end of the year. So you will notice in the first quarter, while I will indicate there is a lag, I will have wait till the end of June to see whether there is a pickup. So if there is a lag, it suggests some things. And in some of the OECS countries, it do happen sometimes. Sometimes expenditures, capital programs are in the budget, but they are not really ready for implementation. So you have lags because at that point in time, you have to negotiate and put things in order. And these could cause some lag. In our countries, we also have capacity constraints sometimes, and hence you have implementation challenges. And these could cause lag. Now, capital expenditure is a government investment in the economy, and hence it is always good to speed up your investment. But you have to do it right.
So, Ms. Bain, you know, I have difficulty about the capital expenditure, and not this government, the government before. We have always had challenges, and we will start. We had an agricultural project, Byron could correct me. It cost 3 budgets.
Yes.
And nothing could be done. 20 million.
World Bank project, yeah.
World Bank project.
10 million
10
US.
million US, well, 27 million.
Yeah, 27 million EC, that's
so
correct. Yeah.
The issue for me, Laurel, is this. Here we are in policy positions. We know we have a capacity issue. We ain't guessing that. Whether it is in equipment, whether it is in personnel, we put items in the budget for spending in capital. We have a whole ministry devoted to getting rid of red tape and having things implemented faster, and yet still, we just passed a supplemental budget of 20-something million, and a lot of that is capital, and between now and the end of the year. And a lot of us have expressed concern that the government could ever meet that expenditure that they have passed in the budget on the supplemental side, because
plus, yeah.
we don't have the capacity, whether it's in equipment and personnel. So my question is, we look as though we are never addressing the issues to have capital projects done efficiently. If we have to bring in people, bring in people. If we have to bring in equipment, bring it in. The country benefits in the long term. You just said it. We have to invest in the country and the projects. What do you think is the problem here?
So I will say two areas. One, and the issue, as I mentioned before, whether when the projects are in the budget, they are ready for implementation. Click ready for implementation. And in some cases, you still have to negotiate because you depend, particularly when you depend on external agencies, right? The second one is your internal capacity. To what extent do you have external capacity to manage the amount of project? As you say, you bring in individuals, but they still have to fit within the capacity within the government setting. So that might be another constraint. So what may need to be done is to look at the capital programs and ensure that what is in the capital programs are realistic, right? That could be implemented within the period.
And not
whether you bring in or whether you use your local capacity, what stage they are in the budgetary in terms of their development ready for implementation, and your review.
You know, Laurel, I think we play too much politics with the capital expenditure side. It sounds good to have huge figures and a lot of nice projects, but as you say, they're not ready for implementation. And by the time you do all the negotiation, you meet all the legal requirements and so forth, 6 months, a year, 2 years pass and nothing could happen.
It's called politics.
Yeah, and I think that's a disservice to our country, but that's a different conversation. I know you can answer that. You're not a politician. So I just say to say that, you know, I believe we really have to, as you say, be realistic with what it is that we could get done, and I know have it implemented properly.
Ms. Bain, The reality of our economy is that we are heavily dependent on the CBI program from an income point of view from government. We've seen significant growth in our tourism product and its contribution to gross national product. But with all of this happening, those two factors, we see a diminishing agricultural sector. And again, I'm going back to it, how it affects our food security, the health of our nation. How do we create a better balance there? But more, I want you to answer the CBI question, our dominance for income there. How fickle, how fragile do you see, risky do you see this? And what is your view generally on that, how we balance the agriculture and tourism and the service sector generally as we go forward as a nation, particularly in the 50th anniversary?
Okay, so let's take the CBI first.
Yeah.
And we're all aware that, internationally there have been issues relating to the CBI program. However, it is important that, first of all, your approach to the CBI program and you know that these things are likely to happen. However, it is important that you operate, a proper, efficient, acceptable CBI program, because it has to stand international scrutiny. And I know there are efforts to do so. We know it might be, there might be challenges. The important thing that I see at the moment, while we have the CBI funds, it is there, we should invest in productive capacity that will sustain the economy even when the flows are falling. Okay. But at the moment, you do your best in terms of due diligence, in terms of maintaining the program, in order to maintain the program. But taking in the back of your mind that you need to improve your productive capacity in the event that something happens.
Agriculture is one, Laurel, if we go in and use technology. I just interrupted. Go ahead.
On the agriculture sector, the agriculture sector, there is tremendous scope for the agriculture sector, I always believe. I think it has to be organized in such a way that the linkages between agriculture and the other sectors and even the creative industries should be fostered. So it's basically, there is the potential, the organization of the agriculture sector. We have to see agriculture now as a business. I know, dearly, you mentioned modern technology, utilizing modern technology, having markets for what is produced, and linking it with our other sector. It will take it's not easy, because for years we have been saying, we need to link agriculture with the other sectors, and it hasn't been done. But we need to start, even from the schools, see agriculture as a business, a decent business, and with your proper marketing and your proper linkages.
Laurel, one of the things I have with agriculture is that we have used very little technology. Take, for example, nutmegs. And we have a director here. Nutmeg industry,
past director,
has not improved or utilized technology in terms of how we pick nutmeg. How they fall. We've been bending down, mashing up with back for years, and we have not found and looked at introducing some sort of system. We have nutmeg falling and rolling downhill. Men have to go right down in the bottom, pick up a bag and struggle to bring it back up. I'm just saying, that is one of our premier export items. And we still go to the nutmeg field with a cutlass and water boots and a bag to pick up our basket. Nothing has changed in the last 50 years. Our director could correct me. The only thing we improve is how we shed it, how you call that thing when you crack it, the cracking and so on. That has improved over the years, but no significant thing in the field. I just use that as an example because it annoys me that we've been a premier producer in nutmeg and we have not really added value to what we do in the agricultural sector. And my final comment, it's not a great. it's not
Yeah, I
really,
just want to
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
just want to come in here, and here's where I said we need to look at it as a business, and we have to look at opportunities, right? In terms of what? Remember, we said we still have a young population, good, but we have a slightly maturing one, and sometimes we look at the government also to take the initiatives, but as the population that is elderly moving in that direction, they could, and you have the youthful one, unemployed, need to develop an attitude. Maybe some mentorship, guidance, ideas could be shared. Because the youth like to share ideas, challenge, they are flexible. So let us use them to see how we could increase investment in the people, the youth, and in the sectors, and the agriculture sector is one of them. So sometimes we have to say, what can we do to help change a situation or to initiate change?
So, Laurel, I mean, I will just leave you with this. When we decide to change the board composition in Nutmeg Association, that'll be the first big step. And get young people there to give the ideas and the energy that we need.
Ms. Bain, I mean, we have to continue this conversation. It's really, so rich, so much information here and knowledge, and we want to say thank you very much. And we will invite you back to continue the conversation, but that's all the time we have. So on behalf of the MTV staff, we want to thank you very much for being with us, being our guest this evening. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurel.
Yeah.
Good seeing you.
Viewers, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. Chris, we must ask for more time on this program. We need some more time. But that's all the time we have. We want to thank our technical team and viewers. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week at the same time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
On Sunday, October 6th, Mega Force Promotion says all roads leads to Monroe Plainfield for the most exciting bingo game ever. Bucks and money. We're talking 20 bingo games and $100,000 in a box. You decide your winnings. This is gonna be pure fun and excitement. So get your tickets now. $60 for one or $100 for two. Grenada! Get ready for $100,000 in cash as Mega Force Promotion presents Bucks and Money. Sunday, October 6th at Monroe Plainfield. You just gotta be there.
In our part of the world, we need to be prepared for natural disasters like storms and hurricanes, even outside of the season. I'm sure you'll agree that keeping our loved ones, homes, and businesses safe is important. So, I came up with a few quick tips to help you stay safe. Familiarize yourself with your electrical panel, as it may be necessary to switch off the power during a storm or flood. Make sure you install a transfer or isolation switch to prevent your generator feeding electricity to Grenlec's line. If trees are too close to power lines, call Grenlec at 237 for advice. By following these easy steps, you will be well on your way to being hurricane ready. Don't be caught off guard by natural disasters. Prepare now. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
How you store foods can help give it a longer shelf life. Store items in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. Place them on high shelves to keep them safe from minor household flooding and make sure the room is well ventilated. A message from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council.